Hey soccer fans, welcome back to the Feed the Fire podcast. I'm your host Nick, and in this episode we are looking at the Chicago Fire's glorious victory over Western Conference opponents Houston Dynamo, a 2-1 win at home at Soldier Field. Man, what a match. We're going to break it all down for you and maybe temper your expectations going into the Red Bull Arena with the league leading Red Bulls here. Going to be a tough matchup, but can the Fire sustain the momentum? We're going to talk about all of that in this episode and more, so stay tuned. Hey soccer fans, it's Nick once again with the Feed the Fire podcast here on Glass House Soccer, and I am so happy to be coming to you after a Chicago Fire win, a 2-1 victory against the Houston Dynamo. We're going to talk about everything that happened in that match. We're going to hear from John Donovan, but I got to take care of a little housekeeping first. We got to recognize a few people from this last week. First of all, I want to thank Ryan for always contributing to the online polls and questionnaires on Spotify. And if you don't, or if you're listening on another platform, please jump on over to Spotify. There's a poll every week. What did you think of the episode, as well as a question that I like to ask more specific to the Fire. So this week, Ryan responds, at this point, what moves should the Fire make this summer? Do you foresee a shakeup with coaching? Should they, if they don't have a second head coach lined up? We were completely outclassed. Negativity deserved. Now, that post came after the Atlanta episode, after that 3-0 loss at Atlanta United last week. And yes, I do have a negative temperament. That's a little of my personality and a little of being a Chicago Fire fan for so long. And Ryan, good on you for always calling me on it. But yeah, this week it was a very flat, a very nothing performance by the Fire against Atlanta. So yes, the negativity is there. It's deserved. But now, God, what a difference a week makes, right? 2-1, things are feeling better. The lineups have changed a little bit. We're going to talk about that once we get into the X's and O's of the Houston match. Maybe the coaching staff found a little something that works. Maybe the Fire players are starting to dig a little deeper and find a little something that works for them on an individual basis. But to get back to your question, I do not see a shakeup with the coaching staff, at least until the end of the season. Now, if the Fire, go on like a 6-game losing streak or something like that, yeah, go ahead and shake things up. Get rid of Frank Klopas as the head coach. But gosh, he's always been the interim, so I don't know who you'd bring up as the interim, right? I really think that because the Fire went back to Frank Klopas in this offseason and kind of slapped together a different coaching staff than they've ever had before, I really think it shows that they just couldn't find the guy. And we've seen that in the signings of the players, where the Fire haven't really gone out and signed out of desperation. They have gone out and find guys to improve their roster, but they haven't said, oh my gosh, we need to sign someone, let's throw 10 million, 12 million, 14 million at anybody. They went out and they scouted. They got Shaqiri, who is supposed to be a big impact in the league, has not lived up to his paycheck or his name yet. They went out and got Hugo Kuipers, who's supposed to be scoring goals. They went out and got Hector Herrera. I don't think anyone could have seen how bad of a bust he was, but we haven't seen the Fire be desperate to throw money around and sign just anybody they can. They seem to be a little more pragmatic. At least that's the glass half full approach. Glass half empty approach is they just can't get business done. But that's another discussion for another time. But I do think it's indicative of their coaching search. I don't think they are going to just shake things up unless they have their guy, or unless they absolutely need to, if Frank ends up losing the locker room and losing a few matches in a row here. So that is my take on that. And yeah, they really don't have a second head coach lined up. Now, as far as your other question, what should they do over the summer? A lot of the fan consensus has been to go out and get a designated player winger, someone who can link up with Hugo Kuipers and provide him that consistent, excellent quality service that he definitely needs in order to stay consistently on the score sheet. However, given the injuries to the back line, Turan, thankfully he's back. Chihos with his legs, I don't know how much how many more minutes he's going to be able to play, how many more 90-minute games he's going to play. But of course, Gutman going down, Gasper going down, Aragoni, Dean having to move across, Suke coming back after being in the doghouse and possibly being moved to another team. I would imagine the immediate need for the team is to bolster that back line again, but if they can go out and sign a DP attacking player, I don't see why they wouldn't do that. I could also see them maybe trying to get a younger player who can fill in as a defensive midfielder, or perhaps take over for Gaston Jimenez, Federico Navarro, if those two players end up leaving the club at the end of the season, depending on what the front office envisions. And yeah, like I said, as far as coaching, I'll see them ride Klopas until they get their guy. There may be someone they bring in during the summer. We saw them last year bring in a couple of Greek coaches to try them out and see how they fit in. Obviously, that did not work because they ended up bringing back Frank Klopas. But that's the case. That's how I would respond to your question, Ryan. Thank you so much, man. I always appreciate the contributions. Also, I want to recognize just the great tailgating atmosphere. I was at the game with my cousin Chris. He had been to maybe one other Chicago Fire game before this, and he and I ended up having a great time, having a Chicago handshake with the Arson City Ultras. Thank you to Josh for kind of kicking things off over there with us. And we also had a great time, having some beers with the Red Line supporters group. Thank you to Paul. Thank you to Dan. It was great getting to talk to you guys. Really enjoyed the pregame atmosphere. Maybe we talked a little too much hockey, though, Dan. But it was a lot of fun regardless. And it was definitely worth missing out on the Chicago Fire baseball jersey to hang out with these supporters groups and have a blast, talking, drinking, having a good time. So thank you to you guys especially. And one more shout out to the Houston podcasters. Old Soccer Guy, Foxtrot, Noodle Tiempo, thank you for having me on their Instant Ramen show last week previewing Chicago-Houston, where I correctly predicted a 2-1 Chicago Fire victory. And I know they said they'd be listening to see the post-game wrap-up from their opponent. So I appreciate you guys tuning in, even after taking the loss. You guys coming and tuning in. Thank you so much. But now let's get into it. Let's get into the game. 2-1 victory, goals by Xerdan Shaqiri, Brian Gutierrez for the Fire, as well as for Aliyu, stumbling over that. I think I still might be feeling the effects of that Chicago handshake. Aliyu gets the equalizer in the 65th minute for Houston Dynamo, but again, Gutierrez with the winner. Now, Shaqiri scores in the 10th minute off a penalty kick. It comes after Rafa Chihos gets pulled down by a Houston defender in the box on a corner kick. Now, it was kind of funny. Chris and I are chatting with the fans around us. We're cheering, we're chanting, let's go Fire. And I really didn't see what happened. I honestly thought when the ball was played in, it was a foul against the Fire, because that's what I expect when I see these kind of quick whistles and kind of the players walking out of the box. But lo and behold, I went back and found some clips later that night. It was indeed a penalty. Now, I know Houston fans are going to quibble that Chihos went down way too easy, that he felt the contact and went down. But, that if a striker's doing that on a breakaway and he feels the contact and goes down in the box, he's a wily veteran. But if Chihos is doing it on a set piece, well, that's just taking advantage of the situation, right? No, keep it the same way here. But he does get pulled down. What is key in this whole call, though, from the officiating perspective, is if you went back and watched a lot of the clips and the highlights like I did, you'll see that the referee actually warns the Houston defender about pulling, about grabbing the Chicago Fire players. He gives them a warning, and the defender continues to do that as the ball is served in. So yeah, maybe Chihos exaggerates it. Maybe the defender should have been a lot more careful. But really, that's just kind of bad scouting too, bad preparation by Houston. The Fire rarely play a corner kick past the near post. I don't think that ball was anywhere near Chihos, or it was just near enough for the referee to say it affected the play and call the PK. But all around, can't let the referee be forced to make a call. If you're a defender, he made the call, and Shaqiri remains perfect with the Fire on his MLS PKs there. So that's the 10th minute, 1-0. The 65th minute equalizer. I know we're going to hear it from John Donovan about the poor back pass from Ferbers, as well as the poor defending from Salquist. He does not step up to have Aliyu make a decision Do I shoot? Do I dribble? Do I pass? He just kind of stayed put. He really got stone-footed there and was a statue. And Aliu got to pick his head up. You could probably count to like 4 or 5, and he takes that time to pick out that far corner and bend it around Chris Brady, who, to Grip Brady's credit, like full outreach, man. He looked like he was doing some gymnastic acrobatics, but could not make the save. Couldn't get the fingertips on it. And then in the 78th minute, Gutierrez with the game winner. Coming off the bench for the first time, he's able to get a toe on the ball. Great look by Shaqiri. We've criticized Shaqiri for playing long balls forward because he's just lobbing balls forward, turning possession into a 50-50 situation. But in this case, Gutierrez recognized the space. He only had one center back ahead of him, and as soon as Shaqiri gets the ball, everybody knows what he likes to do. But in this case, it was the perfect long ball over the top because Gutierrez was in a one-on-one situation and had the momentum attacking the defender on that. He's able to get past the defender, screen the defender, as Steve Clark, Houston's goalkeeper, comes out at the last second to try and swat the ball away. Gutierrez is able to get a toe on it, flick it right over him. The fans knew from the moment Guti gets that flick on. We were jumping up and cheering, watching that ball trickle into the net, and it was a fantastic goal. Great for Gutierrez, his third on the season. Remember, he said his goal this season was 15 goal contributions, and so that puts it to, I want to say 3 goals and an assist. So he's got a lot of work to do to hit his individual goal, but I think it can be done with a little bit of confidence like we saw today. Now, like I said, there were some interesting lineup changes here that the Fire made, so let's take a look at the lineup. Chris Brady starting in goal, no surprise there. Alan Aragoni moves from the right to the left back position. We saw last week Jonathan Dean get slotted over there, played competently enough. I shouldn't say competently enough. It was just a bad all-around performance by Chicago against Atlanta United. But Dean usually does an okay job regardless if he's on the left or the right, but he could not get forward into the attack from that left back position. Klopas moves Aragoni over to the left, and it's Arnaud Souquet, the beleaguered Frenchman, who gets the start on the right, plays well enough, has some good rapport with Marin Haile Selassie, something we saw last season. And heck, if you're thinking of this from a cynical perspective, keep Souquet in, work with Selassie, show his value, and then move him in the next transfer window, or move him before the deadline if you can, if you're the Chicago Fire, right? He's got his green card supposedly now, so he can take up a domestic spot on the roster. Might be worth trying to flex him and move him to another MLS team. So Souquet is on the right, Aragoni's on the left. You had a center-back pairing of Rafa Chihos and Tobias Salquest, giving Tehran a little bit of a breather in this match. Your defensive midfielders, Kellen Acosta, Fabian Herbers. This was interesting. We saw Fabian Herbers on a pretty good streak, at least until the Atlanta game. He'd had a number of goals and assists. He'd been getting forward in attack. But for some reason, Klopas slots him back into this defensive midfield position. I don't know if he didn't like seeing Jimenez or Navarro match up against this Houston Dynamo team, or if he wanted to maybe use Fabian Herbers as a bit more of an attacking player, thinking that Acosta would be able to run that midfield. But whatever the reason was, Fabian Herbers is starting in that defensive midfield position against Kellen Acosta. Where I was absolutely thrilled with the changes in the starting lineup, Chris Mueller gets the start out on the left wing, on the attacking midfield side there. Couldn't wait for him to be fully fit, getting back, getting starting minutes, and stretching the defense. And we'll touch on some of the passing charts in a little bit, but he definitely had an impact on this game. If he did not contribute directly to the goals, he absolutely had the defense on their heels and always had to be accounting for him. They could not be doubling up Hugo Kuipers. They could not be pressing Shaqiri, Herbers, Acosta, because Mueller was such a good outlet for them. I think he had a pretty good game from the eye test, at least. I haven't looked at his advanced stats for this game, but absolutely was influential in changing a little bit of the way the Fire played for the benefit. On the right side, you saw Haile Selassie get the start. While I would have preferred to see Gutierrez starting, I assume Klopas said, look, Gutierrez is in a slump. He has just gone downhill since that opening match against Philly where he had a goal and an assist, a great goal and an assist. And also, the coaching staff for the Fire still haven't really figured out a way to have Gutierrez and Shaqiri both on the pitch at the same time, playing together effectively. So the fact that he had Gutierrez able to sub in for any one of these players was a good option off the bench, and we saw that he did change the game. Shaqiri had a great game, one of his better games this season. I think he was the highest rated player for the Fire on the FootMob website. A goal on the PK, an assist to Gutierrez, actually was running. He was moving around. He was getting in some good defensive position, and then Hugo Kuipers up top continues to continuously press the opposing team's back line. He is as good a defending forward as he is an attacking forward, and I love that he was able to kind of frustrate things for the Houston Dynamo. Always dangerous, had a couple of great shots, but just could not find the back of the net, and I really hope it's just a matter of time where the coaching staff can adjust to him and he can adjust to MLS defenses. So that was your starting lineup. But the final, here are the subs. Gutierrez comes in for Mueller. Federico Navarro comes in for Shaqiri. That's a defensive substitution. Mauricio Pineda comes in for Kellen Acosta. Kind of a like for like in terms of positional play, but definitely not in terms of controlling the flow of the game. As much as I like Pineda, I think Acosta can definitely exert control over the game more. And then Gutierrez comes in for Hugo Kuipers. Again, love seeing Gutierrez get in and just press. He can do what Barlow can do, and probably is a little bit better of a goal scorer as well. Phenomenal to have him as that option late in the game to come in and seal off the win. So those were your substitutions. Players on the bench, Spencer Ritchie, your backup goalkeeper. Wyatt Omsberg, backup center back. Carlos Turan was not in this lineup, so obviously with the red card, that's why he was not here. I had forgotten that earlier. And then you have Gaston Jimenez and Tom Barlow also available. So you saw a different lineup. You saw some of its effectiveness with the coaching staff and with the players. And let's talk about those passing charts. If you go over and follow MLS Stat on Twitter, he's got a bunch of breakdowns and statistics and passing charts after every MLS match day, and I loved what he's been doing with the passing charts. If you compare the last 3 games, you see that, the wingers are about in the same position each game, and that was something that I was looking for, because I thought Mueller would be playing a lot more wide than Haile Selassie or Gutierrez, and not be pinching in as much that Gutierrez and Haile Selassie would be doing. Those two guys looking for attacking, shooting opportunities, where Mueller, he likes to stay wide and play those crosses in, or take on a defender one-on-one from the wing, not from pinching in or overlapping as the other two do. So I was kind of surprised to see that the width of the field was about the same, maybe a little wider with Mueller starting. But what you saw in the passing chart was that the rest of the Fire team in this match against Houston was much more spread out in the midfield. If you look at the games against Atlanta and New England, they were tight. They were compact. They were not creating space. They were not moving around as much. That tells me 2 things. Number 1, I think that confirms Klopas' coaching style of when he's on the road, he's playing defensive and he wants to clog the middle. And secondly, it shows then that they're relying on Shaqiri's long ball a lot more offensively, versus this Houston game where the midfield was much more spread out and they could work the ball in, around, and through some of Houston's defenders. And you saw Houston has a 4-3-3 lineup, so maybe it was a little easier to do that than if they were playing against a 4-2-3-1, kind of a box defensive formation, or a 4-4-2 kind of formation. Now let's take a look at the statistics of this match. Does it match up to the eye test, and what can it tell us about the Fire's play? Now they only had 41% possession, and Houston really dominated possession, especially in that second half. And I think a lot of that was due to the substitutes. The Fire were playing a lot more defensive later on in the game, but they did enough to get the win. And if the Fire are going to play without the ball, they are going to need to have those opportune moments with Shaqiri to play the long ball up top, or start working the wings a little bit more. But in this case, it worked out for the win. Slight margin of error on those guys. Slight margin of error. 41% possession. Here's the kicker. 8 shots. I will say, 6 shots on goal. That might be the most shots on goal they've had all season, but only 8 shots. Meanwhile, Houston, 15 shots, 5 on goal. Houston did have to block 3 shots. Total passes. This might be a season low or near it. 344 passes by the Fire, 75% accuracy. So they were playing, if you look at the passing charts, a lot more kind of medium to long balls than they were previously. They weren't just dinking the ball around the box. They were trying to play some more dangerous passes, and when you're counterattacking, you are going to play lower percentage passes. So I think this actually, even though it was only 75% passing accuracy, it shows they were trying to do more going forward. So I'll take that, but it's got to be paired with your wingers being able to take guys on the dribble one-on-one, and it's got to be paired with Acosta, Pineda. If it is going to be Ferbers or Gaston Jimenez or Fede Navarro, having some of that possession in the middle third of the pitch, and then picking and choosing when you go forward. 5 corners for the Fire, 3 crosses, 1 offside. I'd like to see maybe 1 or 2 more offsides a match, just pushing those defenses a little bit further. They did win 10 aerial duels to Houston's 5, which is, I think, a big difference. I don't know Houston to be a very big aerial physical team, but it's good to see that the Fire were winning those balls. It forced Houston to try to play through them rather than over them. 1.6 expected goals. That is a little disturbing, considering that the penalty kick is only going to be between 0.75 and 0.85. I forget which model that MLSsoccer.com uses, but even adjusted, it might be up to 0.89. So half of the Chicago Fire's expected goals come off of 1 penalty kick. So they still need to turn their possession or their opportunities into higher efficiency opportunities, higher percentage shots. And I'd like to see them maintain possession, and when there is a rebound or a miss or a clearance, that they can win it back and then recycle the ball and start having 10, 12, 15-minute stretches of possession. Maybe that's too much, but rather than just 3 or 4 minutes here and there and they try and create something out of it, I'd like to see if they can possess the ball a little bit more. I know they're not built for it, but we've seen them in that Atlanta game just pass the ball around the box without creating opportunities. Now it's time to blend the two. That possession with the opportunities, with the shooting, winning the ball back, and then maintaining possession for a 7, 8, 10-minute stretch. 2 clearances, 14 fouls committed by the Fire, 1 yellow card. And let's see if there's any other stats that we need to look at. Here's an odd one. I'm just starting to check out these MLSsoccer.com passing breakdown stats. 20% set piece crossing percentage. They're not getting on the end of set pieces and crosses. I think that matches with the eye test. How bad they are converting corner kicks and set pieces into scoring opportunities, into shots, which is really, really an indictment against them hiring a new set piece coach, not to mention the fact that they give up so many goals on set pieces. Thankfully, they didn't do that against Houston in this match, but there was some questionable defending as well. So that is the statistical breakdown of this game. If you want to jump on MLSsoccer.com and check it out in further detail, you'll see a lot more nuance on it, but that is the outcome of it. Again, to summarize, the win feels great, but the Fire were in no way the dominant team. Houston controlled large portions of the match. Houston looked more dangerous than the home side for large portions of the match, but the Fire were pragmatic in this particular game, and I'd love to see them merge that pragmatic approach with a little bit of that hustle from Shaqiri on defense again to the possession they had, the passing possession they had against Atlanta, and I think that would kind of be the perfect marriage, and you might see the Fire, if not score more goals, at least create some more high percentage opportunities. So that is my recap of the Houston game. 3 points is all that matters at the end of the day. I'm going to take it as a win. It was a win. I'm going to celebrate it as long as I can. Probably till the next matchup against Red Bulls, but we're not going to be down yet. We're not going to get down yet on that. But at this point, we are going to take our sponsor break, and we're going to recognize Icelandic Spring Water Skira as a sponsor of the Feed the Fire podcast. And if you or anyone who's listening would like to join our list of sponsors, we can customize a plan, whether it's through social media, whether it's through additional content that we can get you in on the ground floor. We're doing some work on the goals.tv platform as well and looking for additional sponsors. So I want to thank Xerdan for being the first sponsor with Feed the Fire, and we continue to grow with their support. So thank you to Xerdan, Icelandic for clear. Xerdan water comes from a spring in a government-protected nature preserve in Iceland with naturally low mineral content. This isn't your average water. Clearly, pun intended, it's one of the best. I may have to throw on my Iceland jersey at some point to show, because I was in Iceland, how long has it been now? About a year and a half since I've been in Iceland, and oh my goodness, the water there is amazing. Their tap water is better than like most bottled water that I've had. So I can only imagine how the bottled water that Xerdan is putting out, like how much better it is. I know it's good water. I've had enough of it, but just the quality above everything else. Go out to your local 7-Eleven, get a few bottles of Xerdan, and I'll stop waxing poetically on about Xerdan. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our featured guest, John Donovan, joining us after a win. Let's see how great of a mood John is in tonight, guys. Take it away, John.
Nick, John Donovan here talking about the Chicago Fire and the MLS. Nick, we had quite a game this weekend. It was very exciting. Houston against the Fire. Houston obviously are a much improved squad under Olsen. I like the way he plays. He's kind of unpredictable. He was short two of his stars, Ache and somebody else this weekend, which really helped him out a lot. But I thought the game was going to end up in a 1-1 like a normal Fire home game. But lo and behold, it couldn't be better. An American player, Gutierrez, having a wild shot at near the end of the game. It was him, the goalie, and the fullback. And what really was beautiful was he was in the air when he shot it. It was one that he will remember for the rest of his life. It was a beautiful play. But there were some surprises in the game. Klopas is slowly, I think, coming back to reality. He always confuses me with who he puts on the field. And this time, especially with the forward line, I believe he had it right or almost right. He had Mueller over on the left side, which he has created so much damage to people on that left side. He gets the ball into the center, which is where we spent all our money with Kuipers this winter. And Selassie had a really good game. It looked like Houston was trying to double team Kuipers down the middle, and that left Selassie like wide open quite a bit. Guy Escobar, who created the penalty that Chicago Fire scored on. I mean, he about tackled Sijos in a corner kick. He about tackled him. There was no doubt that it was a penalty. It was a very stupid play. But he was chasing Selassie almost the whole game. It was a good game. I really must admit that. I was encouraged to see Olmqvist on the bench, but then I realized that Xerdan has been, was on a red card. I will never in my life understand all of Klopas's positioning. I mean, again, you need smarts, skill, and management to have a good team. We have the skill. There's no doubt about it. We have poor management, very poor management. But he's got Olmsberg on the bench, and he's had a heck of a time trying to regulate that back line. Sijos is all right. This is probably it for him this year. But Xerdan has been very unpredictable. If there's one thing predictable about Xerdan, he's going to get cards. And obviously he got this red card the other day late in the game. So, if I was Klopas, I'd have as my center mids, I would have Pineda and Olmsberg. Those two guys are sharp, in shape, rough dudes, and college graduates, North Carolina and Dartmouth. I don't think you'll have delays in the game or people not thinking about their positioning like Solquist. I think we got a bad deal with him. I want to kind of flash back to the Torres trade with the DP. I think Solquist is kind of like that player that just doesn't keep his feeling into the game. The one goal that Alua scored for Houston, it was a Solquist goal. He was so far back. He gave them, they could never be offsides with Solquist towing the line, but he gave them about 10 yards. And he just, if you're a pro player, man, you're going to put those laces into that ball and the heck with the goalie. And that's basically what happened. It seems like every time he's played, he's blown something at some time in the game that ends up in the back of our net. So Shaqiri played an all right game. Would I've liked to see Gutierrez in that position? Yes. But, Shaqiri did not play that badly this game. I watched him. He walks an awful lot for a midfielder, a center midfielder. As they were saying in the Spanish thing, they said that, he plays real well over in Switzerland. They felt that he was dogging it over here for the 8.2 million. I kind of agree. He wants to be part of that Swiss team, but he's got to get a paycheck from somebody, and old Joe Mansueto gave him a big one. Houston, in the beginning of the game, it was really quite even. I mean, a lot of midfield play. I didn't see anybody really grabbing on to the game. And then suddenly Selassie started breaking down the right side, and it became really noticeable that they were trying to smother Kuipers in the middle. So interesting game. I think at the, Brady played real well. There was many more shots on goal by Houston than there was by the Fire. But Brady just seemed, you got to hand it to his coach. I mean, he's half of being a good goaltender is positioning. And Brady just seemed to be in the right position, especially for some of those headers. He was there and ready for the game. As I said earlier, putting Mueller out in the left was the logical thing that should have been done quite a while ago. I know he had some health issues, but he's been sitting on the bench for quite a while, and we haven't had any offense. So good for Klopas finally getting some of those games together. Second half, I thought Houston came out like a different squad. They really put the pressure on old Brady, and Brady came up with some really nice saves. Gutierrez at the very end of the game, it was really interesting. About the 65th minute, Klopas started substituting in players, which, it's a jolt to the guys that have been on the field for 60 minutes. You get a professional player against you that isn't tired. Now that is a jolt to the system. And Gutierrez came on, and I'll tell you, this was a goal that I won't forget, or Gutierrez will forget. Shaqiri led him down the right center, right towards the goal. Escobar was chasing him because he was outplaying Kuipers. He was almost on the ball. Ball bounced very high. The goalie from Houston came out. Escobar was behind him, and Gutierrez jumped up and flipped the ball over the goalie. It was really a beautiful goal, something that I think he'll remember for a long time. I still wish that they'd get rid of Shaqiri and put Gutierrez out there, because it's not developing the skill that he needs. If you'll remember the previous game, he seemed lost in that position. He wasn't running for the open spot. He wasn't accepting the ball back. A lot of things that a center mid just has to do. I got to say that, finishing the game with a American player putting the ball in, for me, that's what I love to see, the American players out there doing it. So who played good for the Fire? Obviously Gutierrez, and I felt Mueller played a really good game. I thought Acosta played a little rough. His shots were high and long. Who played really a bad game, and I don't know why they got him, is Solquist. I hope we don't have him for a long time. You'll look at Jimenez. We blew a lot of dough on Jimenez, and he's not that good. Navarro, we've still got another Navarro that they played at the end of the game. And lo and behold, the guy gets on the field and he does a slide tackle that, could have been a red card. Could have been a red card. Every time Frank puts these Navarros out, or the old Navarro, you almost have a card, and that's the same thing with Xerdan. So, good game. I hope we have the next 6 out of the next 8 games are at home. So the Fire better be doing their deal now, and hopefully they can hold on to some wins at home. Let's go. Okay, Mike, say hi to Mike, and Nick, thank you very much for this opportunity. Good night.
Thank you, John. Appreciate your contribution to the show as always. And for our listeners, John titled this segment Great Ending when he sent over the sound clip to me. And yes, that Fire game was a great ending, and we are hoping that the Chicago Fire can keep the greatness going. But they're going to have a tough time doing it in their upcoming match against league leading, that's right, top of the Supporter Shield standing, Red Bulls of New York. Let's take a look at the Fire's next opponent. Looking at their form, again, they're having a pretty good season. Top of the standings, 4 wins, 2 draws, and a loss. Most recent run of form, a 2-1 win against Cincinnati, a draw 1-1 at Orlando, and a victory at home against Inter Miami. That was their signature win of the season, a 4-0 thrashing of the Herons at Red Bull Arena there. So they are sitting atop the Supporter Shield standing. I think they're 1 point ahead of Vancouver. So yeah, let's put that in perspective, guys. The top 2 teams in MLS right now, Red Bulls and Vancouver Whitecaps. So just think about the universe that we're living in, at least for the time being. So again, Red Bulls are in good form. They're playing well. Let's take a look at their starting lineup. And every week I go back to their last game, see who they've started, and see what we can glean from that. Now, when they played against rival Cincinnati, they were in a 4-4-2 lineup. They have Carlos Miguel Coronel in goal. Starting from left to right, John Token, Sean Nealis, Andres Reyes, and Dylan Nealis as your back line. Yes, Sean Nealis and Dylan Nealis, brothers, playing for the same team at the same time. Not totally unheard of in Major League Soccer. I'm sure there's some article out there about all the different brothers that have played together or against each other in MLS, the Roldans notably in Seattle. But that is their back line, a veteran back line, not just wily, but also very physical, very strong, going to wear you down over the course of the game. Hugo Kuipers is going to have his work cut out for him, that's for sure. Hopefully we can keep that same strong wing play, getting him the service he needs. But remember what we said, looking at those passing charts, that the Fire were much more compact and tight, and were just relying on long balls because they did not want to get beat defensively. That's my biggest fear here, is you see the Red Bulls in a 4-4-2 formation. If they come out like this at home, maybe they'll be a little bit more offensive minded and come out with, a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3 or something, or a 4-3-2-1-1, I don't know, something unique where they can play a little bit more attack minded or high pressing against a Chicago Fire team that has struggled in transition defense. Heck, you saw the goal that they gave up. Bad turnover from Fabian Herbers, and Salquist does not know what decision to make and just stands there and allows the opposing Houston player to take the shot. So this could be trouble for the Chicago Fire. This is definitely going to be a tough matchup tactically, as well it is just going on the road and playing against a very aggressive Red Bull team. Aggressive in defense, that high-pressing system that they're known for, as well as aggressive in offense. All right, looking at their midfield, going left to right, they had Emil Forsberg playing out on that left wing. Dangerous no matter what position he's playing. Frankie Amaya in the center, along with Peter Stroud. And then out on the right, Wickelman Carmona. So a very experienced Red Bulls center midfield. Frankie Amaya, a man who can pull the strings. Emil Forsberg, who can pretty much do anything on the pitch. And then they've got 2 of the hottest players in MLS right now, Dante Vanzier and Lewis Morgan up top. Morgan's got 6 goals on the season. Vanzier has 6 assists on the season. that is the offense. Now, granted, there was a hat trick in there, but they all count equally, right? They all count. You still got to find the back of the net. So you have a very, very potent attacking duo on Red Bulls, as well as a very solid back line. However, I'm not too impressed with Cornell's goalkeeping. As a matter of fact, if I can scroll down here on fbref.com and take a look at some of the goalkeeping actions, the Red Bulls actually... Oh, no, I lost the notes. The Red Bulls actually have one of the lowest shots faced in Major League Soccer. They have only faced, and I apologize, I didn't have this pulled up and ready to go here. Anyway, just trust me on that one. I looked it up before. They actually have one of the lowest shots faced. I think they have the third lowest shots faced in MLS. So that is something, if the Chicago Fire contest Cornell in goal, they might be able to take advantage of it. If you can get Kuipers in there, if you can cause some havoc in the box, make him make a decision, make him come off of his line, we might be able to get a goal early. We might be able to keep the pressure on, and I think that would be a big advantage for the Chicago Fire there. Additionally, the Red Bulls, though, they do not have, because of that unique brand of Red Bull soccer that they play, they are not high up in Major League Soccer in any sort of statistical category or any sort of advanced metric. They are very middle of the pack. They just take advantage of their opportunities. They turn other teams over, and they launch their counterattacks quickly. And Emil Forsberg, as we've noted, he can score from anywhere on the pitch. You saw that preseason goal he hit, I think it was against the Fire. So those are the players to look out for. Those are the tactics that you have to look out for. But those are the areas that the Chicago Fire can take advantage of. If I'm going to make a prediction, though, I just haven't seen the Fire string together enough wins or enough consistent play where I feel really good about them going now on the road and picking up a win. I do not think the Chicago Fire win in Red Bull Arena, but a little bit of that preseason familiarity, a little bit of that confidence, as long as the coaching staff for the Fire don't overthink things, keep it simple. I really think that we are going to see a very, very good game. I'm going to be optimistic and say it's a 2-2 draw, but if the Red Bull come out with 3 and 4 goals against the Fire's 1, that wouldn't surprise me either. Again, knowing how tight and compact and how defensive the Fire play, but maybe that serves in their favor if they don't want to play with the ball, and neither do the Red Bulls. So I'm picking a 2-2 draw on this one. A lot of things that could happen, a lot of momentum going into this game for both teams, and I would love to see the Fire come back on a little bit of a point streak here. Let's look at a few things from around the league, because we have not done a bit of a league roundup here in a while. There's been some transfer news that I've forgotten to talk about. Some big transfer news. Olivier Giroud, the French international, has agreed to terms with LAFC. I haven't seen any finality of this, and it may have fallen apart since I first read that, which is why LAFC went ahead and signed Kai Kamara, most recently of the Chicago Fire. So those are some big moves going on over in the black and gold side of Los Angeles, or if you're a fan of LAFC, the only side of LA, because the Galaxy are out in the suburbs in Carson City. But that is definitely something to keep an eye on. Kai Kamara, if he's going to continue his record-setting goal scoring for LAFC, or if Giroud ends up coming over to play in MLS at some point in the summer transfer and playing for LAFC. Also, some things to keep a lookout for. FC Cincinnati have loaned Archimedes Ordonez to a Swedish second club, so he's looking to get some minutes over there. Miami have signed forward Leo Afonso, as we saw him perform and score in this weekend's match. The Galaxy have acquired Colombian defender Emiro Garces, so trying to bolster up a little bit of the defense that has let them down late in seasons recently. FC Cincinnati have also signed Yamil Assad from DC United, so getting some more pieces in the midfield. Let's see, any other big names? LAFC have signed center back Maxime Chanot, familiar name to MLS fans. I believe he was with NYCFC most recently from MLS, but I can't make out the logo from what club he is coming from. Inter Miami have also signed midfielder Yannick Bright. Wow, lots of moves still going on. Atlanta United signed Daniel Rios on loan from Chivas. FC Cincinnati loaned Marco Angulo to Ecuador's LDU Quito. Latif Blessing has made the move to the Dynamo from TFC. We saw him this weekend in the Fire match. Let's see, what else? Here's some news. San Diego FC, the new expansion side for MLS, have signed their first internationals, Ingvartsen and Sverkov from FC Nordsjælland. I did not pronounce those correctly, but that's the best I can do with my limited understanding of Norwegian here. Excuse me, Denmark. San Diego FC, that's the name of the team, not FC San Diego. San Diego FC has started building their roster. We have seen St. Louis get that extra year before having to play any games to build and develop. Maybe San Diego is trying to start that off and get things set as quickly as possible and start getting their players together. Hopefully it pays off for them. The last little bit of soccer headline I want to get into, Concacaf Champions Cup. We've kind of neglected to talk a little bit about what went on in the round of 16, and we are already one leg into the quarterfinals. Let me just tell you, it has not looked good for Major League Soccer. In the first quarterfinal matchup, the Revolution lost at home to Club America 4-0. And we know how good Club America is, and we know how New England has been struggling in league play, but for them to go down 4-0 and now still have to go to Mexico, it could be one of the worst aggregate losses in continental play ever, at least for MLS teams, if Club America drop another 3 or 4. What it really is going to mean is that they could probably play a lot of reserve players and then be rested and ready for their season and for the next round, not, again, boding well for MLS teams they may have to face. Also, Columbus drew Tigres 1-1 at home, so Tigres gets that ever-important away goal. Doesn't mean Columbus can't come back and win, but it's going to be extremely tough to do it in Mexico. On the other side of things, Inter Miami hosted Monterrey, and Monterrey gets a 2-1 victory. So once again, MLS club loses at home. Couldn't even get the draw and have to go win it on the road or make up goal differential there. But there was some controversy in that game. I haven't read up on it and watched any more of the recaps, but definitely go back and check that out, and you'll see exactly what everyone's been talking about. On the other side, Liga MX club Pachuca goes to Herediano and wins 5-0 there. So it looks like Pachuca is going to be through and Club America are going to be through. What does that mean for the bracket? That means Pachuca is going to meet Club America on the left side of the bracket. And so you're going to get a Liga MX club in the inaugural CONCACAF Champions Cup finals. And on the right side, on the other side of the bracket, it'll be the winner of Columbus Tigres facing the winner of Monterrey Inter Miami. It's the way things stand right now. I would assume Monterrey coming back home with a 1-goal advantage and a +1 on away goal differential here for the time being. I think they've got the advantage there, but I would like to see Columbus get in. Hopefully Cucho can get back for that game and really make an impact and then go on to face Monterrey, and then we'll have at least one MLS team in the semifinals of the inaugural CONCACAF Champions Cup. But crazier things have happened. It is CONCACAF. One other quick thing, news to mention around the league. TFC star Lorenzo Insigne is out 6 weeks with a hamstring injury. We saw Toronto fall flat on their face this weekend without him, as well as Sean Johnson not having a good performance. So TFC will be scrambling to try and make up some ground without their star in the lineup. Don't forget to look for Glass House Soccer over on goals.tv, where I'm doing 15-minute recaps of the scoreboard and the standings, give you a little more 10,000-foot view of what's going on around the league. And with that, please like, subscribe, share the show, tell your friends. Let's continue to grow the audience and grow the sport through conversation. And as always, let's go Fire.